Hey friends, welcome back to another Adult Faith Formation video. This is a series where Pastor Micah and I take either the Old Testament or the New Testament reading and we read it to you and we dwell in the text and we tell you things that maybe we think is a very clear message, but maybe we also share some nuance or some special detail that seems meaningful, and we just dwell together. And so usually at the end, which I will do, we invite you to share thoughts if you have any. And so this week, our reading actually comes from the Old Testament. It comes from Isaiah, and I love the book of Isaiah. I love the prophecy. I love the journey the Israelites go on. I love the beautiful imagery that we get in the book of Isaiah. It just really is meaningful and paints a beautiful picture, and we learn a lot about faithfulness and God's love. So Isaiah is one of my favorites, so it was an easy choice this week. So our text comes from Isaiah chapter 66, verses 10 through 14. Rejoice with Jerusalem and be glad for her, all who love her. Rejoice with her in joy, all you who mourn over her, that you may nurse and be satisfied from her consoling breast, that you may drink deeply with delight from her glorious bosom. For thus says the Lord, I will extend prosperity to her like a river, and the wealth of the nations like an overflowing stream. And you shall nurse and be carried in her arm, and dandled on her knees. As a mother comforts her child, so I will comfort you. You shall be comforted in Jerusalem. You shall see, and your heart shall rejoice. Your bodies shall flourish like the grass, and it shall be known that the hand of the Lord is with his servants, and his indignation is against his enemies. So a little background about Isaiah. We talked about the Israelites. I gave you a little hint about that, but Isaiah is written about the Israelites. It's written to address the Israelites who are going to exile, or in exile, or returning from exile. And so chapter 66 is actually the part of Isaiah where they are returning from exile. And so I think it might be helpful just to maybe define what exile is and why they were being sent into exile. So exile, according to a Google search, is the state of being barred from one's native country, typically for political or punitive reasons. So the Israelites are actually being exiled to Babylon. So they are being sent from Jerusalem to Babylon. And the reason why they're being sent into exile was because of their unfaithfulness or disobedience, as some would say, to God. So their relationship with God was one of sin and unfaithfulness. And so they are being sent into Babylon. But this text specifically is one of my favorites because of the imagery. One, we get a lot of female imagery, which we know I love, right? We love that. But I also love this text because it talks a lot about Jerusalem and God together, right? How God is going to bring this wholeness, bring these people home, and also how Jerusalem is going to be this place where they're going to feel that comfort and love of God. So it gives me some hope. Right? They're going home and it's going to be like this big warm hug. And it makes me excited for the Israelites, right? To feel so weary and tired after years and years and years of not being in a place that is comfortable and familiar and their home, to getting to go home. And so it's also proof that their labor and their exile was not in vain, right? Because they experienced God's forgiveness in this coming home. So the descriptions that I think are pretty cool is the description in this text is referring to Eden, this new Eden that they're coming home to, and how it will be filled with food, how it will be filled and satisfied and nourish them. We know that because we hear about how the nourishment that comes from a mother feeding their child, right? That we know this when we read in verse 11, that you may nurse and be satisfied from her consoling breast, that you may drink deeply with delight from her glorious bosom. The satisfaction, this fullness, this comfort that they will receive by just being in Jerusalem again, which is pretty cool. God is working with Jerusalem to give them this beautiful comfort. Their return is also like a miraculous rebirth, right? They're coming home and they get this whole new experience again, right? And you've learned in exile, and maybe there's more like practicing what we've learned, right? Practicing faith, practicing faithfulness, and what that looks like to them. And so the last little nugget that I think is pretty neat is that this new world we're talking about, this Jerusalem that they're going to, isn't a place of scarcity anymore, right? Exile is a place of scarcity and collapse. And leaving Jerusalem came because of this mindset of scarcity and collapse. But now they're returning home. And so it's a life and a destiny that are marked with gladness and love and consolation and joy. So it is a homecoming. Right? This text is a homecoming. And I think, I think it's really important that we talk about that we talk about this comfort and this hug, this reunion of Jerusalem and Jerusalem's people and her people, right? So I think it's just really cool. And we can relate to that in so many ways when we go places that are familiar. Maybe for you, it's coming into the church. Maybe it's going hiking. Maybe it's being with your family. It's important that we find those places where we feel familiar and we feel at home and we feel like we are being supported and loved, right? And in all of those places that we feel that, God is present. God is working with those things to make us feel loved and seen and valued. So I think this is a really great text that is an example of God meeting us where we are, God meeting the Israelites where they are, and this faithfulness to God, this reunion that they will have, I think is really beautiful. And I think this text is special in so many ways, but I love the imagery of Jerusalem and her people being reunited and God being ever present and a part of that. So my prayer for you this week is that you will find those things that make you feel whole and make you feel joy and loved, and that maybe we see God in that a little more than we normally do. If you have any cool thoughts or something unique maybe you found online about this text, I'd love to hear it. If you have any thoughts, I'd love to hear it. You can leave it in the comments section, or you could email me or text me or email the church. We'd love to hear from you. But that is our text for this week. It comes from Isaiah chapter 66, verses 10 through 14. Till next time, see ya.